And this is true for everyone, every person. An expanded awareness that you are naturally at is not what you're experiencing physical life at. You're experiencing physical life at a pinprick level of that awareness. Welcome to the Driving to the Rest podcast. This is Inelia.
And this is Larry. Just a quick note. If you're hearing this, you're on our free feed, which means you'll only get the first part of this conversation.
To access the rest, go drivingtotherest.com and subscribe to the Wisdom Keeper Hour.
Join us and our expert panelists for detailed insights and the after party where you're invited to join in the conversation. Head over to drivingtotherez.com and become a subscriber.
Your $8 subscription keeps this podcast ad-free and helps us keep the lights on and maybe even get a decent cup of coffee. More importantly, it connects you with a community of passionate wisdom keepers like yourself. So if you're ready to go deeper, join us at drivingtotherest.com and support the journey. Welcome to a field report from the We, one of the We Talks versions of our Driving to the Res podcast.
Yes, we have been a little bit on a wee roller coaster,
We have.
I would say, for
Since
the
the
last
Wii music, right?
few weeks since we have started making music,
Yes.
since music returned.
Mhm.
And despite the music, we still have encountered a few challenges communicating clearly.
Yes.
So we're going to keep trying until we bust through.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the, we'll try this time to get the we to talk instead of me talking. I'm going to try to not talk too much.
Okay.
We've prepared some questions ahead of time.
We did. We translated questions for the We.
And these questions are related to the article that you wrote with the we, or
Yes,
we wrote with you?
we wrote.
The we wrote with you. And that, you can find that article where?
In drivingtotherest.com.
Okay. Attached to this episode, a field report from the we.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
When the unfamiliar arises, if it was that your dog?
Yes.
It's inevitable, right?
She burped. A bit of a wind there.
A little bit of wind. Irresistible. So the unfamiliar arises.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in the human collective, what do you do to understand it?
The concept of understanding things through familiarity is part of the article that we wrote, in that we found out that the way in which people understand things in their minds is a process of looking at data or receiving data, whether it's visual or sound or whatever it might be. And then they will run it through familiarity. What is in the data banks that's familiar or matches what's happening in the data input. Okay? So most people, individuals and also collectives, they carry like a zillions of information about just about everything that happens in the physical universe and beyond. Tons of stuff. And we do not, because this is our first incarnation. So let's say, for example, we sense something in our body. We know from, let's say somebody explained it at some point, from the perspective of, hey, mom or dad, there's something in my body that feels like little ants running underneath my skin, and it puts the hairs on the back of my neck go up and my arms. What is that? What's happening? Right? As opposed to somebody's going, whoa, that gives me goosebumps, right? And they go, oh, that's called goosebumps. And it happens when, and then they will go into an explanation of when it happens.
Yeah, sometimes that explanation is like, that means something's right. It's like the knowing bumps, or that means it's cold, or that means there's like a lot of answers at a
Yes.
singular level.
Mm-hmm.
At a collective level, is there a different answer? There must be, because there's too many different singular answers.
Yes. So at a collective level, different cultures have different meanings for them. And then it's like a feedback loop. So when the person, let's say, gets goosebumps and their grandma says, oh, your grand uncle's spirit is right here. And that's why you got him, because they can see them. And that's a language that they use with the physical body to understand that an ancestor or a spirit is in the room. That person will then allocate that physical sensation to their spirits in the room. And at a cultural level, that probably came in at a cultural level or becomes a cultural level thing through familial connections. And then that's what it's going to mean. And that's how the body will express there's a spirit in the room. For another culture, it could mean the temperature's changing, it's going to rain.
Well, or it's cold.
Or it's cold, right? But there's a difference between goosebumps of when you're cold, because there's other things like a little bit of shaking of the body, different senses of like pressure kind of feeling in your toes and your fingers. And there's different things that will allocate the goosebumps to it's too cold that you can add to it. But also a person might say, yeah, that's happening because you're too cold right now. And that will the person will learn it. It could be cultural because there's some countries in the world that's never cold, so the goosebumps would never happen when it's cold.
Right. So I guess the odd thing is that what we're talking about is something as consequential as goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really that consequential, but the interpretation that the we get, and then in turn, what the we shares about those. If I was to ask the we, what do goosebumps mean, as opposed to the we getting goosebumps and asking their mom what they're about,
Mm-hmm.
how would the we respond to what are the goosebumps about?
So the first thing that we would respond would be, can you explain what a goosebump is?
The hair on your arm sticking up, for instance, or the back of your neck, and little bumps on their skin.
Okay. So we can look at their memory bank to see familiarity of situations where that happened, and they will get the mom saying what that means. And it might mean, yeah, there's a truth has been said. Could be that. I think that's what our mom said. A truth has been uttered. And so it could be that. And again, looked at from a larger perspective, we can tap into the human collective and see, wow, the goosebumps have different meanings all around the world, but they stick. So a person will have that interpretation and could be the same interpretation in their culture, or it could be a completely different one. And they have a personal language with their physical universe through having goosebumps.
Right. Understood. That's do we tap into the singular or the collective or all of the above? And how do you singularly answer a question like that? Or you're just not really designed for answering questions?
Well, we would first of all tap into the person that's speaking the words. If they can't get the answer from their field of awareness, they will directly ask, what do you mean by goosebumps? So that they can get an accurate description of what that person means. And then it will probably have an investigative line of inquiry to figure out if the person actually does have a personal language that will cause goosebumps in their body. So, for example, oh yeah, those are goosebumps. Do you get those often? Yeah. What kind of situations? When's the last time you remember getting those? XYZ. And do you remember the previous time that you got those? Yeah, this time, blah, blah, blah. And then what about other times? Yeah, what's the common denominator there? What's something common that happened in all those times? Most answers are yes. And then the person will be having an aha moment about, oh, the goosebump means XYZ. Or they can come together to get an agreement on what they can mean for that person.
So the we are different from how people interpret and answer questions, because it's more like a computer code. If thens, enter into this collective, enter to this collective, research, ask question, give a response. So if like the we asked me what are goosebumps for, I would just take the environment. Is it cold? No. Well, that must mean there's something right. What just happened? Or it could mean you got to chill. There's like two answers, despite the fact that there might be a infinite level of answers.
Yeah.
We're not really. I don't know if equipped is the right word, but generally we generalize with what we experience is what everyone experiences. So that's a pretty big difference.
It is. It's a very big difference.
So what if you encounter something unfamiliar that the human collective doesn't really have an answer to? It's like, for example, we've heard stories when ships from Europe came to the east coast of the United States, or wherever they came. It's actually kind of coming up on Columbus Day / Indigenous Day. And here there's this story that when the Spanish ships came, they have all these sails. And this giant ships with all these sails, what sails were wide, and it looked like they were clouds. And the clouds were bringing, well, strange looking people with silver skin, or whatever you want to call it. And the interpretation was that these weren't regular people because they came on clouds. Because I had no conception of a giant ship with sails, despite the fact that we know many ocean-going cultures, matter of fact, all of them have some form of boat with some form of a sail to take advantage of the wind.
So from your description, it appears to me that it would be a false historical recall of the ignorant natives mistaking these people for not being people. Other data that we can access is by the Spaniards coming into indigenous lands on horses, and the natives thinking that they were gods because
they look like minotaurs. Yeah, those are.
Yeah, so
I mean, they're true in Greek too. So
right, and then the story goes from the native perspective that I have access to. Some kids saw the Spaniards going into the woods and taking a dump, going back to poop.
Naturally.
And then they realize they're human. So they quickly separated the ladies from the tribe so that those boys wouldn't make little alien babies.
I don't know how we got there from where I was, but so
interpretation of memories and familiarity.
The fable of the men coming on clouds is a fable to make the Spanish feel a little bit more justified in the actions, and they wrote the history. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. There had to be a projection of authority over the locals that worked in many cultures, and it still works when we see colonialism around the planet. And part of that is, again, from other historical remembrances, would be a matter of, well, their god is more powerful because their weapons kill more people faster and from further away. So from that perspective, it would be very simplistic, but a memory that could be giving authority to others. Their gods are more powerful, or they are not human, they're demigods, and all these other things.
Okay, so the question is more specifically about encountering something unfamiliar. And so in this case, tribal people encountering and seeing sailing ships come in and having a first encounter with a sailing ship, because I mean, it's just different scale. Boat with sail, giant boat with sail. But how about a Thunderbird? Thunderbird is a shiny metallic something that shoots lightning out of its eyes or whatever. If we were there then, which
The
collective of those group would say this is a completely unfamiliar object. It's obviously a bird that has lightning in its eyes. What would we do to, I mean, come up with a true answer to what is that? If from the human side, right? No idea.
Yeah.
UFO, don't have that word. Angel, some collectives have angel, and apparently angel is also a UFO. And some have thunderbirds, and some have ravens carrying clams, and some have, I mean, there's flying turtles. All those things are collective interpretations of an object they're unfamiliar with. So how will what will we do to come with a real answer, what it is actually?
Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of the experiences that humans are having are flying turtles. And even though we would not agree with that it's a flying turtle, they don't actually have any way to express what it might be. They know it's not a turtle because the data is different, and they can see beyond the interpretation even of the eyes or memory, right? Because you see it and you believe it's something, that's what you're going to see. And we can see past that, but they don't have a full understanding of what it could be. But
they know it's not a flying turtle.
Correct. Yeah, they know it's not a living creature called a turtle that lives in water or rocks, or I don't know where they live, that is flying. They know that it isn't, because the data doesn't match. And then they could go, well, you might call it turtle-shaped. That would be the closest. But it's not a live turtle flying in the air. And that may or may not be accepted by people.
Probably they will say, you know, talking about, I just saw it. It is a turtle, and it was flying.
Right.
It's not
Are you calling me a liar?
Turtle-shaped object. It is a turtle.
Right.
I clearly saw he had legs and a shell and a head. And he was not walking.
Right. Yeah. That's been the answer for most people, and most of reality is interpreted like that by people. And it doesn't matter if we will say that doesn't quite match the data. It's probably something else. Let's look at it closer. The people would react in that way. No, it is.
Things like, I mean, one of the more recent experiences I had with that was with the COVID virus. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I asked you where it came from. Can you reflect or share the we's process to come to the conclusion that they came to? Because it may or may not be known to other people. Like I could ask you something, and at you level of reply, like you have to wash your hands and use antiseptics and all these other things, and wear masks to keep all the germs away and all these other things. You carry that as a human body, but as a we, you look at it again and you come up with a different answer. It's what was the answer, and how did they come to that, and why was it not something that you had onboarded from a young age already? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the expanded awareness, and this is true for everyone, every person, an expanded awareness that you are naturally at. It's not what you're experiencing physical life at. You're experiencing physical life at a pinprick level of that awareness. And from that pinprick space, there's not a lot of space to have all the data, all the information, even of the physical universe, let alone the universe, all of the non-physical universes and other experiences, or even outside of your field of familiarity. Let's say a person is an expert cook and they know 1,000 recipes. and they don't know how to start an engine when it fails in a truck. Yeah. So even from that level of experience, a person doesn't hold much data. They'll hold 1,000 recipes, but they don't know how to fix an engine or restart it when it fails. Another person will know all the makes of cars and trucks and everything and all about engines, and will continuously be studying the new engines that come out in the market, and they'll know how to start an engine, but they can't cook an egg.
They can't even warm up a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
I have met those people.
It'll burn. The soup will burn.
Yes, it's true.
Right? So that's it. From that perspective, is the same with my experience of a larger awareness of we and the personal experience of the pinprick reality of a singularity. And they're both highly interesting from different reasons. But when you talked about the COVID thing, and when you ask certain questions, I know that we have an answer. They go ding ding ding, and I often will ask, "Do you really want an answer, or are you just making commentary? Do you really want to know?" Yeah. And I believe, I don't quite remember anymore, but because it's been many years ago now, but it was something like,
did it come from a lab or did it come out of a pangolin or some animal? Because years, it seems like a century ago, that was the big question, because it's a naturally derived virus, or was it a laboratory created virus?
Mm-hmm.
And evidence seemed to point to it was a laboratory created one, because, I mean, there's
so the data
either way, it's like, which one is it?
When you step out of the pinprick, a person can receive information in many, many ways. And if you think about the physical universe being all energy and frequencies in different bands of solidity, or just different bands, you'll know that every single creature, being, or entity on the planet has its own unique frequency vibrational signature. And with regards to that, the inquiry went outside to test, to find the virus, to see, was it natural? Because if it's natural, it's going to be throughout the world in different levels of dormancy or awakeness, right? Activeness. And if not, then it's only going to be in a very, very small area around the lab, right? So that was the first inquiry, went out and it couldn't find it.
Couldn't find it in a lab or
around the world. So my conclusion was to the we're probably not familiar with its signature, otherwise we would have found it. Let's find a very familiar one, a very familiar virus. And then from that, we'll learn how to look for virus, and then we'll retrace back and try and find the other one again. And when we tried to find the flu virus or the common cold, we couldn't find it either. There was nothing there. And then we tried different ones that we're familiar with. Not there, not there, not there, not there. They don't exist. A global scanning of virus did not exist. There was nothing there. Then round to you. Says, I've got some terrible news. Viruses don't exist. Which wasn't exactly what we were expecting.
That was completely unacceptable. It's like...
and unexpected. And you said, don't tell anyone, or they think we're even more crazy than we are.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And I said, we have to tell people. We have to.
Yes, and then...
a lot of our videos got deleted from the internet.
Indeed, most if not all of them.
Yeah, a lot of them. All of them that talked about.
And all of our reach got turned to 0.
Yes.
And all of the audience.
Let's see how this one goes, if it stays online or not, because we don't know if they're finished.
They're done with that or not.
Yeah.
Because now they're pretty sure that it wasn't actually natural. It was a lab-grown one, so they have someone to blame. You can blame China.
But it doesn't actually exist. So we thought, this is crazy, so we went on the internet and started researching existences of viruses, and very quickly...
At a pinprick level,
yes.
Even at a pinprick level, there were plenty of data to come to that very conclusion. There are no viruses.
Correct. Yes.
Because even at a pinprick level, looking at the pinprick
debunked.
science
It was debunked
showed that it was completely
decades ago.
irrational,
Mm-hmm.
debunked, and there were many in the know. Well, I don't know if I could say many, but there were plenty.
Plenty.
But the channel of information that has that many in it was very well, like, tempered, I guess. Maybe, I mean, I don't even think it was that well hidden, honestly, because I just Googled it.
Yeah, it's right there.
So
It had been debunked many
more like
decades and decades, maybe 100 years ago. It's
over 100 years ago, since before 1912 flu, the same thing was going on. It was like that movie with Tom Cruise and the alien that does a little repeat in time over and over and over again, stuck in a time loop. Do you remember watching that with us?
Yes.
Live, die, repeat, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like we're in one of those loops, to be honest.
Why?
Because every time something happens, you can find its replication about 100 years ago, if not 110, 150 maximum. It's just
that's 100
years.
I've seen that too.
Over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So the fact that there actually are viruses.
There are no viruses.
That people fully and wholly believe in.
Oh, you
at a mass level, yes. Yeah. At a mass level, humans as powerful creative beings have created a virus.
They haven't.
How could they not?
They haven't. Because there's certain laws of physical creation, co-creation, and the physical universe you can't break.
Well, that may be true. It is true. There are certain things that can't be broken, but creating things isn't one of them that can't be broken.
Yeah, but
definitely create things.
Not a virus, though.
Why would that be the one thing you can't create?
Oh no, there's plenty you can't create.
And that doesn't make any sense at all.
Or unicorns.
You can definitely create unicorns, but
no, you can't.
You definitely can. Well, you can make flying turtles, and you can make unicorns.
No, you can't.
I can make a unicorn and show a little girl, this is my unicorn, and she will totally believe it. That is a unicorn.
And what does that unicorn look like?
It could be a cartoon version. It could be a stuffed version. It could be a horse with a horn stuck on it.
Mm-hmm.
But to that child, it's definitely a unicorn.
But is it real?
It's a real horse with a real horn. A virus.
Is that real horse with a
virus is a unicorn, yes.
Yes.
But it does beggar the question, as powerful creators of reality, we're creating everything that we're witnessing moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
Why would virus be one of the things that is off limits to create? It makes no sense. Because not only is it a perfect item to create, it's invisible. So it doesn't have proof of its existence.
The data we received also is that there are levels of terrorism that the governments around the world use to control people through fear. And it begins with the enemy, the other. So you create different cultures that are very separate from each other and very secretive. You don't know what that other person over there behind the hill is doing. And therefore you become afraid of them because they're unfamiliar to you. They only stop being frightening when you see them for real and you think, oh, that's just a regular person, and they're no longer scary. They're no longer your enemy. Then the next level of terrorism from the governments is to create enemies that are different, for sure. You might be able to recognize one if you saw one, but they're invisible. They hide. They're invisible. They hide. And every now and then they appear and they blow up your train. Yeah. And then they have a name and they have an organization and they're the enemy. But you can never tell who they are because they look like a regular person, but they're different because they're a different culture and they're making a statement, but you can never find them and you can never fight them because where you can put an army and go over the hill and kill them like you could before with the other enemy that you're not familiar with. And the ultimate of that is an invisible enemy that you cannot see at all. But they're giving you the name of it, and they're giving you all sorts of things that they can tell you if you put this on, it's not going to affect you. And that was discovered many, many years ago as the ultimate weapon of terror, because then you can control people's actions to incredible amounts. We've seen that happening around the world, how much control that invisible enemy that you cannot defeat because it doesn't exist is.
So the cosmic joke of it is the controllers, power over other controllers, have on purpose created something that doesn't exist, which is why it doesn't exist.
Yes. Because you cannot fight it if it doesn't actually exist.
Because if it did actually exist, then you could fight it and you could actually succeed.
Defeat it. Yeah.
But a particle that you cannot see that does not exist is completely impossible.
Correct.
And in this structure of co-creation, you're co-creating with these individuals on this creation, and they're very powerful creators with sway and influence and power. And their creation supersedes the others, which, I mean, the rest of the people who haven't Googled, do viruses exist? Those ones. The rest of them, despite their going along with they must have viruses because the scientists said there are, they're not actually actively creating a virus. They're just responding to the no virus.
Correct.
They're not active creators. They're passengers.
Yeah, and the people who are actively believing that viruses exist and do all the things, put things in their bodies to kill those viruses or stop them from killing them, those people are co-creators and need that in order to live in a light dark paradigm.
Yeah, it was a bit of a paradox because the impression is that humans are creator beings that create entire reality. And so why wouldn't they create an invisible particle? I guess its definition is a paradox itself, right?
Invisible particle.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, some will say, oh, I've seen pictures of viruses. They're not invisible.
They've seen pictures of particles that somebody said this is a virus.
Yes.
Which in fact they're not. So.
Okay. But at some level, humans should be able to create a very small particle that's infectious person to person. They should be able to create that, right?
There are ways in technology to create things that would do poison individuals. There's gases, particle gases that are toxic. You can release them in the air, and the person can get them into their body and slowly release them through their skin and affect other people with them too. Poisons. There are toxins and poisons that are particle based and can be spread.
So probably the reason virus particles themselves aren't a human creation that's creatable is because the very definition of what they are is a paradox and
erroneous.
It eliminates itself.
Yeah, because this says it's alive
and dead and a parasite, yet unable to be collected in enough numbers to be seen from any individual person.
Right.
And only be able to be seen through this process.
The creation is
end of which
the creation is actually creating something invisible that you cannot fight because it doesn't exist. Because if it doesn't exist, you cannot defeat it. That's the actual creation.
Yeah, and so I understand that now, because otherwise it's like, how can you not create when everything that is here is our creation? Well, you kind of did create it. It's just a nothing creation.
It's a belief system.
Right. Okay, well, we can... Let's see. I think we touched a little bit on collective versus singular And the collective contains all of the singular.
Yes.
So singular is one thing, and collective is a spectrum of
People, groups,
spectrum of whatever.
beings. Yeah.
And the spectrum, are there within the collective spectrum all of what the singular expressions are within that collective spectrum, or are there outliers that maybe like in the Indian village when the ship came, it's like, oh, that's a ship. Or maybe when
It's a very large canoe.
it's a large canoe with sails, it's nothing extraordinary, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Within the collective experience of the tribes, there was that outlier or two that were like, relax, this is just guys.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's pretty common. So those are almost always, as the outliers, very few in number.
Yeah, there's very few. But there's always
some.
Some, yeah.
Is that one of the rules of this realm?
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's move past unfamiliar into anthills. Anthills are pretty familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the article we mentioned the anthill at the end of the article.
They're familiar, but they're also mysterious because there's this thing outside, and you have this. I think there's a whole bunch of tunnels under there. What the hell are these guys up to under there?
Yeah, so if you look at the desert, it feels like there's nothing living there at all. And then you walk it, and there's gazillions of anthills.
Yeah, you don't even want to lay down on the ground.
So many ants.
Ants and scorpions and every other creepy crawlies. Yes. So was it is the anthills an analogy for something in the article?
Yes, it is. But I think it could be misinterpreted because most individual humans will consider an ant to be an insignificant little insect with a hive mind that's creating all these ant hills in a desert. And they might think, oh, it's the minutiae of human experience. Right?
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. But it's talking about sand, and that we are the sand. And the sand's having a conversation with the ants.
There we go.
And in which way can the ants and the sand converse? Well, the ants move the sand around and make structures and little tunnels in the sand and pull the sand out and make mounds, because that creates a whole system of air that cools the entire nest down.
Join us for the rest of this conversation at driveintotheres.com.
And when you go to driveintotheres.com and you join in the rest of the show, rest of the second hour, you also get to join in the after party. 9 o'clock on Fridays, we all get together, including you.